Hey folks, right, coming up, top of the hour, Daily Chaos, and yeah, should be good. Hey folks, right, coming up, top of the hour, Daily Chaos, so yeah, should be an interesting show today. We got, we have Sir William Jaffray coming in to tell us about Democracy 17.4, which is, some of you may know, Caroline Stevens' project as well. And so anyway, going to be having a chat with Sir William, and that'll be in about 9 minutes' time. And taking calls on Discord from the bottom of the hour, from 7:30 GMT. So see you then, folks. Alrighty, okay, let's have a good one. All right. Blimey, I tell you what, I'm a bit tired today, yeah? Did I say this? If you are watching an archive version, then you might just want to fast forward to, I don't know, about 7 minutes or so, 8 minutes to the top of the show. Otherwise, yeah, I enjoy the music. Oh, blimey, I tell you what, skipping around. This rig, people, I'll tell you what, this rig is having a real problem coping. It's having a real problem coping now because I'm streaming out to 3 different places, simulcasting here. With OBS Studio, which is awesome software when you're streaming to one place. Not too bad with 2, but my word, I tell you what, I got a really powerful rig here, but it is struggling with this software, with 3 instances of the same software open, plus God knows what other software. So, look, I need to get this thing called Wirecast, yeah? It's 950 quid. 950 quid! Oh, blimey. Look, if you can donate, please, please, please do, yeah? At the top of the screen there, it says, yeah, it's got the address for bunging us a beer. If you can, I'd really, really appreciate it. I promise you, your donation will not go to waste. Thank you. God bless you. YouTube, and I'm still on. Getting that echo. I'll tell you what, man, it's going to be so much. I just want to be a journalist. I don't want to be a desk producer. I want to be a journalist. For crying out loud. Let me just get on with what I need to get on with. For crying out loud, for bloody getting Brexit. Oh, truth, I'll tell you what. Hold on. Have some music. Blimey. So we're still going out on Steemit, and we're still going out on YouTube. And I will set this back up on Fascistbot. Oh, I'll tell you what. Oh, blimey. Right. Okay. And I'll give you some music. If it'll let me give you some music. There we go. Yeah, yeah. Please, Rig. Please, Rig. Come on. Come on. Come on. Hello, man. All right. Doop, doop, doop. I don't know if it's going to work this time. Right. There we go. Do. I hate tech. I just want to get on with asking questions. I tell you, you gotta laugh. We'll get there. A bit like British Rail, really, isn't it? Hold on, a bit of that. There we go. Yeah. We're running late, people. We're running late. True to form. I should be. If you just join, says DJ. Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. He's crazy. Crazy. Just running a few minutes late, folks. Having an absolute nightmare with the tech tonight. Just for a change. Actually, you know what? This is an excuse for me to plea for money, please, because I am pretty brassic, and I'm using this thing called OBS to stream now to 3 different places, and we need to get the message out. Everywhere we possibly can, and simulcasting is the way to do that, particularly when Facebook are bugging us around with their algorithm, and YouTube is no bloody better, probably, I don't know. And so anyway, yeah, got to get it out as widely as we can to as many places as possible. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is simulcasting. And the software I'm using to do that, it only allows 1 stream at a time. And so I've hacked it so that I use a separate instance for each channel that I'm streaming to. So I've got 3 instances of the same software open on my machine, my rig, which is a very powerful rig, by the way. Is having a problem coping. And so please, this software I need to solve my problem, it will allow me to simulcast to as many places as I want, bandwidth dependent, is 950 quid. So please, paypal.me/Brexit. If you want to help me create some awareness, God bless you. Thank you. All right. Enough nagging. Yeah. Be a couple of minutes. A minute. Oh, hold on, that's my guest. Hello, is that Sir William Jaffray?
Yes.
God bless you. Just going to be 1 minute, sir. Running a bit late. Had a bit of a technical problem tonight. Yeah.
Call back?
No, please, just 1 second, sir. Thank you. Right, that's enough of that struth. We're late enough as it is. Okay, we're getting onto it now. Getting onto it. Hey, folks. Good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Chaos. And it certainly is that tonight. The show ain't daily, but the chaos is. And now, Democracy 17.4. That's a familiar figure. Founder Sir William Jaffray has popped in to chat up his political venture, which seeks to replace the useless buggers in Westminster with independent MPs that, get this, rather than being loyal to some bloody party whip, might just be loyal to their constituents. What a wheeze! As Boris might have said. But will it work? And can it work, given that the media is hell-bent supporting fascism instead? I'll be taking your calls on Discord for Sir William. That's on guv.li/rant if you'd like to call in from the bottom of the hour from 7:30. And I see the Predator Jeff's already in the green room. Jeff, you're going to have to wait, mate. And I'll see you in the comments. If you want to bung us a beer, big cheers, please do. That's using paypal.me/Brexit. And that's at the top of the screen somewhere there. And I'll tell you what, that just to recap, some of the technical problems that I had just tonight, because we're now streaming out on 3 different channels. And I'm using software that actually only allows you to stream on one, because it's open source. It's very, very good. But it only allows you to stream out on one. I've hacked it to go out on 3 by using 3 instances of the same software on my machine, but it is playing havoc. It doesn't really like it. And apart from that, it's also extraordinarily fiddly. And so instead of thinking about questions and, holding people to account, holding democracy to account, unfortunately, I'm having to spend a lot of my time not only being a switchboard operator, but also trying to be a desk producer. And so, guys, folks, people, if you can, please chuck us a few quid to help. The software I need is called Wirecast. It's 950 quid. But we got to get the message out, and we need to spread the message as far and wide as we possibly can. I promise you, you donate to this show, it gets plowed back into this show. For now, anyway. One day, maybe it'll be different, but right now, I'll tell you, it all is getting plowed back into the show, and a lot more besides. Right, okay, so but enough nagging and all that. Thanks, everybody, for turning up. And thank you, Sir William, for turning up. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
We, what I do is to just go through a bit of the news, first of all, just to see what's going on. So let's have a quick look and see what's going on in the world of fake stream. And I'll bring you into this, William, if I may, to have your comment. So here we go. And again, because I'm having to work with 3 different pieces of the same software, and I want people to be able to see the media. I want them to see the fake stream that I'm talking about, because, as you know, at the top of the show, I tend to analyze it a wee bit, just to give you a bit of a heads up on how the news is being spun, outright lied about, etc. I wrote a bit of a piece earlier, in fact, a chapter for my new book. Dear God, I Have a Query is the book, which is in the process of being written. And that chapter was propaganda, or rather, don't pay for propaganda. And the reason I do this new section at the top of the hour is not to pollute your minds with what should carry a government health warning, for God's sake, but because it is consumption, and you be careful what you consume. But because I want you to see how they're spinning it, and so on and so forth. And so let's have a quick look. And now I think you should all be able to see what I can see in terms of fake stream media. God bless it. And Drudge, I'm very worried about Matt Drudge these days. I'll tell you, he's just lost the plot. What is this? Kim Summit at White House. I don't know what she's going to be talking to him about. Presumably it's going to be about bottom implants or something. Maybe she's going to be his bottom advisor. Right, okay. Independent, or rather not so independent. Brexit, second referendum campaign to be launched. George Soros announces divorce will be a long process, probably taking more than 5 years. 5 years is an eternity in politics, he says, especially in revolutionary times like the present. Yes, they are. 5 years is a great deal of time. 5 years from now, if we went along with what George Soros wants, we'll have given away our military and all of our sovereignty, and we'll have nothing left, and we won't be able to defend ourselves, and we will not be able to take back control at that stage. That's what that, yes, indeed. 5 years is a damn long time. Absolutely. A campaign to secure a second Brexit referendum is to be launched in days. The billionaire fascist George Soros has announced. The financier in a keynote speech has said the prospect of the UK's prolonged divorce from Brussels could help persuade the British public by a convincing margin that EU membership was in their interests. Mr. Soros is reported to have given about £500,000 to Best for Britain. What is that? If that is not corporate political collusion, i.e. fascism. Okay, it's a little bit different. They're not in power yet. It's not quite fascism in that context, but my God, I'll tell you what. To Best for Britain, which was set up last year by anti-Brexit campaigner Gina Miller. God bless her. The group is expected to publish its campaign manifesto on the 8th of June, calling for a second chance at democracy, etc., etc. We'll be carrying that, and my God, we're going to be repping into that. Not so independent, also carrying, just to give you an idea of the flavour, British voters took benefits of EU citizenship for granted, Luxembourg Prime Minister says. Sorry, Sir William, would you like to comment, sir, on tell me, another story, top story on the BBC on PM or whatever today was about some fake Ukrainian, Russian type story. Somebody was supposed to have been shot and then they weren't. All of that. Should we, the British public, be more concerned about Vladimir Putin or George Soros?
Well, I think it should be George Soros. He is a Hungarian. He broke the Bank of England in 1992 by shorting sterling in order to make money, and cost the British taxpayer $3 billion for his speculation. He has no interest whatsoever in democracy. He's a manipulator who likes to meddle in other countries, and I hope he loses a lot of money along the way. As for Vladimir Putin, I think Russia should be our friends, and we should indeed have an Anglo-Russian treaty to secure what's called the balance of power. It's extraordinary, in my view, how Theresa May, who has dithered for 2 years over Brexit, within 2 or 3 days assumed that the Skripal poisoning was orchestrated and authorized by the Kremlin, and had the 23 Russian diplomats expelled. Decisive action on that, dithering on the other. Thank you.
Independent also, British voters took benefits of EU citizenship for granted, Luxembourg Prime Minister says. Xavier Bettel says populists have misunderstood how to best protect sovereignty. Luxembourg, there was a certain Jean-Claude Juncker who was the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, wasn't he? And his speciality, whilst the PM of Luxembourg, as I recall, was setting up tax havens, was setting up a tax haven for corporations. Again, well, fascism, no? British voters took the benefits of EU citizenship for granted when they backed Brexit, the Prime Minister of Luxembourg has said. In a speech at the European Parliament, Xavier Bettel said the fact so many UK citizens were adopting EU citizenship to keep the benefits of membership was proof of the huge benefits of the what a lot of crap you are and your bloody newspaper rag. Also saying another headline with the Independent Best for Britain chief campaigning for second referendum compares Brexit to the appeasement of Nazi Germany. I tell you, that's disgusting. Comments come after George Soros announces the campaign for a second referendum. Brexit has been compared to the appeasement of Nazi Germany by Neville Chamberlain, in the 1930s, by a leading supporter of the Remain campaign. Lord Malloch Brown, the former Foreign Office Minister who heads the Best for Britain group, made the comments after billionaire George Soros announced a campaign for... what would you say, Sir William?
Well, about appeasement, yes, Theresa May is a latter-day Neville Chamberlain. She has allowed the EU lot to dictate the agenda, which was the mistake she made by going down the Article 50 route, and has, as a result, made a complete mess out of all this and achieved the square root of nothing over a period of 2 years.
I don't think he means it in that way. Let me read the next paragraph. Lord Malloch Brown said Britain needed to stay close to the EU because appeasement, which was a your take was absolutely right. Which was a 1930s government policy of pursuing agreement with Nazi Germany in the hope of avoiding war, showed how badly things could go wrong when the UK tried to isolate itself from the continent. He told BBC Radio 4's Today programme, Britain's history as an island nation adjacent to mainland Europe is when we try to sort of pull away from Europe's problems and close ourselves off to them. They have a horrible habit of infecting us anyway. Appeasement in the 1930s, you name it. For centuries, Britain has ignored events on continental Europe at its peril. What do you say to that?
Well, as I said, it's interesting that Malloch Brown is doing a bit of a volte-face by comparing the present situation to appeasement in the 1930s. The whole EU setup is very much German-driven. Germany makes all the money through having the euro rather than the Deutschmark. And in my view, Angela Merkel has achieved what Adolf Hitler failed to achieve.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's take a different tack on the EU. Again, it's the Independent. I do apologize. I would have been sorting out my news tabs rather than the tech, but I had to sort out the tech, and so I'm sorry to be shoving so much of this horrid rags stuff down your throats here. Italy crisis. Potential Prime Minister fails to get support for stopgap government as markets plunge. Elections likely to focus on relationship with European Union and Eurozone. Obviously, things are moving very, very fast in Italy. This was 9 hours ago, apparently, about 9.5 hours ago now. The man asked to be Italy's Prime Minister has failed to secure support from major political parties to form a stopgap government. So this is the caretaker government. I'm guessing here, as the country's political turmoil sent international financial markets plunging. Carlo Cottarelli, the former International Monetary Fund official, so another Brussels bankster basically, was asked to form a technocratic government again after an attempt by two populist parties to form a government fell apart, La Liga and Five Star, yeah? The president who appoints the premier and ministers in Italy opposed the populist choice of a Eurosceptic economics minister because that minister was kind of thinking about maybe scrapping the euro, or at least is very anti-euro. So, William, this is... I just wonder if we're going to see Italy pull out of the EU before we get Brexit.
Well, that's quite possible. I think the president of Italy, because I have been following this story as it's developed, the president of Italy, I think, made a very typically arrogant and stupid move in refusing the Lega and Five Star to form a government, and that there will be an election, and they will end up with a massive surge. The reason being that the president has opened Pandora's box and shown that it doesn't matter who you'll vote for in a general election in whatever country you are in. If you're in the Eurozone in particular, it doesn't mean anything. So we have dictatorship at Brussels, and the Italians will understandably be absolutely furious. I suspect that there'll be an election in July sometime, and then there'll be the Italians will then move fast to ditch the euro so that they can restore their country, which is on the brink of bankruptcy.
Do you think that there's a possibility that Lega and Five Star will be campaigning on a ticket to impeach this president? Well,
they may, or they may think, well, let's go for constitutional change, in which case he can spend more time with his family in Tuscany or wherever it is, and we don't need to bother with him.
But potentially we could be in the same situation, could we not? We could see another, if you like, well, close-run thing, but with these two parties, the only two parties able to form a government, maybe as they did this time, they would lock heads well, and they would negotiate themselves they would decide on a common figure for prime minister and what have you, and go to the president. Maybe he'd be okay with that, but then they could be up with the same sticking point with their finance minister, for example. On the other hand, you could argue that they would have a much, much stronger case for him not to veto. He, as you say, he was pretty bold, wasn't he? But on the other hand, he's not broken any law. He was within his rights, and I suppose that Italians are scared of change. It just beggars belief, doesn't it? It's who runs Italy? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on all? Go on.
The two leading groups would put on their ticket constitutional change to the extent that the decisions of the electorate are honoured and respected.
Okay, and a story around this as well, maybe a bit of an update from Groniad, head of Italy's five-star movement, rekindles negotiations to form a government, presumably off the back of the caretaker government looking as though there's a problem with that. A bitter row over the country's future in the Eurozone has divided populist parties. The Italian president, Sergio Mattarella, has granted Italy's two populist leaders more time to form a government in a dramatic attempt to stave off a snap election and solve a political crisis that has engulfed the country. So, okay, we'll watch that space. I guess. Just a couple of other tidbits before we... Sorry, go on. Sir William.
Sorry, I think this is a fast-moving event, and I think the press tend to report in smoke and mirrors, so it's up one day, down the next, and we have this sort of carousel business going on. We need to see how things play out properly, and I'm sure there will be an election in July.
Do you happen to know the sentiment in Rome, for example? Are there many people on the streets protesting what's going on in Italy? We're not getting any news, are we?
I can't. I can't comment on that.
No, fair play. We're not getting any news about that. I'll be amazed if they're not. They're a pretty feisty lot, bless them. Just a couple of other tidbits. Belgian gunman killed a person the day before the deadly Liège attack. Benjamin Herman allegedly bludgeoned a man to death before killing three others. I don't know whether that's related. Is that related to the Liège? Was that not? Yes, it was. It was another one of these religious nutters, Allahu Akbar type character. A prisoner on day release who shot dead two police officers and a bystander. Actually, I think with the police officer's own gun, and a teacher. Yeah, that was the bystander on Tuesday in a suspected terrorist attack. He shouted Allahu Akbar, for God's sake, had killed another person the previous evening. I think you mentioned Angela Merkel. Maybe she gets another credit here.
Well, I think quite possibly. She allowed in over 1 million Syrians without any checks whatsoever, and there were a lot of terrorists in that. Well, we don't know how many, but they were totally unmonitored. And then there was, if you remember, the Christmas market thing a couple of years back.
The truck driving through it.
The person driving the lorry who killed those people was able to travel quite freely right across Europe and was caught in Italy some days or weeks after the event.
Yes.
So this uncontrolled immigration is causing huge amounts of deaths.
As is Schengen.
For instance, in England, we have, according to press reports, 5,000 jihadists, and we have something like 1 million illegal immigrants, none of whom have been checked. And so we are going to be on permanent terrorist alert until we, and indeed the European countries, get a grip on this. And if it means everybody having ID cards like we had in World War II, so be it. Rather have a piece of paper than be in the cemetery.
That's right. We don't have any choice now. I used to be so against ID cards from a libertarian point of view, but now I don't think we've got a choice, have we? And particularly also to stop people from voting twice at elections as well.
Yes.
Yeah, just another couple of related. Oh, actually, something else. Another one. I mean, Schengen also is an issue here. You mentioned this chap was caught in Italy. The Barcelona terrorist atrocity. Those terrorists were in Paris the weekend before. Getting what they needed and stuff like that. Unbelievable. French riot police clear 1,000 migrants from Paris makeshift camp. Who knows? Maybe one day Paris will be romantic again and worth going to. They must be suffering on the tourism front in France now. No?
I'd have thought so. Yes, very much so. Well, there are plenty of places which are suffering from tourism, and it's going to get worse until we get a grip on this, and we do not have free, unmonitored movement. Because what has happened is we have opened the gates to the Middle Eastern countries and to countries in Africa who are not part of the EU, and they're coming in, and it's caused mayhem as a result.
Yes. I just another story that is run every
really desperately
every couple of months or so. They roll this story out, but it's such an important story as well. I'll just briefly tag it. You can't wave English flag in the street. Demo's director attacks political correctness. English people feel that they cannot wave the St. George's flag because of connotations now attached to it, said a leading think tank director. And yet we get these ISIS supporters who are surrounded by police protecting them in Sadiq Khan's Londonistan, and their flag is supporting terrorism, is supporting ISIS, and yet we're feeling bad about the English flag. Where do we start? William, where do we start?
Well, what we've got to do is we need to round up these people. And, for instance, there are reported in the press hundreds of radicalized British people who were fighting with ISIS who are coming back into the country with British passports. And they need to be arrested, interviewed, and subject to due process, have their passports confiscated, and they and their families need to be deported, and we need to make sure our borders are properly monitored so they can't get back into the country. We've got to get a grip on this.
Okay, all right. Now, please, tell me about Democracy 17.4. What is the point of it? What are you trying to do?
What we're trying to do with Democracy 17.4 is that, firstly, there were 17.4 million who voted to leave.
Yeah.
And in taking that name, what we're trying to do is represent the 17.4 million people, arguably quite a few million more now as a result of the lack of action in the last 2 years, and see that they are represented in Parliament. And as you know, the vast majority of parliamentarians are pro the EU. And so what we're looking at is to make sure that they get represented at constituency level. So 17.4 or 17-4.org is our website address. It's a membership association. We invite people from all the 650 constituencies to become members. And then we can then contact them. They can get together locally, find their own prospective parliamentary candidate, someone of local standing, none of this parachuting in nonsense, who will stand and fight the next by-election or general election. So what we're looking at is grassroots democracy from the people to Parliament, and clearing out a lot of this deadwood in Parliament that exists at the moment.
You mentioned parachuting. You mentioned the parachuting.
Sorry?
You mentioned the parachuting in.
Yes.
How big a problem is that in Westminster, please?
Well, the Tory party have at their sort of central office decide who is going to stand when a seat falls vacant. And Tim Hannon, I think it was, wanted to stand, and they decided they wanted to have someone with Remainer credentials. So what has happened, particularly with the Tories at the moment, is that they override the wishes of the local Conservative associations and impose from above who they want to fight the seat. So it might be whoever it is, and it may not be a local person. And once you do that, you weaken, you cut off democracy at the knees, because it's not a local person who does not understand the local issues, doesn't care about the constituency. And one of the most disgraceful instances is of the Anna Soubry's of this world. And her constituency voted 64% leave, but you can hardly turn on the television without seeing her parading her pro-EU credentials. It's an absolute disgrace. We've left the 18th century and the rotten borough system far behind, but according to her, it's alive and well.
She had a majority of about... She had a majority of about
what? What
what?
we're trying to do is turn the whole thing, revolutionize the whole thing, so we have the people deciding who they want in Parliament.
Anna Soubry had a majority of, I think, about 347. Trace majority. And yet she's always on the tally telling us that we're stupid. And I think that her constituency voted about 60%, was it? Or even more for Brexit.
I think it was either 60 or somewhere between 60 and 64%. It was a strong majority.
And yet she has the gall to be parading the EU like some sort of EU fangirl. Okay, right. So the grassroots, why do people vote for a candidate that's been parachuted in by central office?
Well, I suppose if they do, it's because it's with reluctance, but they don't want to vote for, say, the opposing party, and so they have no choice. But they are effectively disenfranchised because they're left with Hobson's choice. Well, I've always voted Labour or Conservative or whatever it is, and I don't have a choice, or I don't vote at all. And it's not healthy, it's very sick, actually.
So it's donkey rosette stuff, basically.
Yes.
All right. I mean, absolutely. It does seem to me that grassroots, of course, they've got to be, in charge of who is in Parliament for them. But how is this going to work so far as Democracy 17.4 is concerned in a constituency that voted to stay within the EU? Because they deserve democracy in their constituency too, no?
Well, I know, absolutely. I think what is interesting is that if the 2016 referendum had been held as on the issue of Brexit as a general election on a constituency by constituency basis, Leavers would have returned something like 406 of the 650 seats. So a clear majority in Parliament. We have no objection if a constituency is solidly Remain and wants that sort of person to represent them, then so be it. A parliamentary democracy relies on, if it's healthy, a strong government with a strong opposition, but if it had been fought on a constituency basis in 2016, we would not have had all this talk about whether the referendum was advisory or binding, and these charade of negotiations, which are absolutely pointless exercise.
What do you think should have been done off the back of the referendum, given the result?
Well, the first mistake was going down the Article 50 route, because that allows the EU to dictate the agenda. And the second mistake was to do this EU withdrawal bill. And countries throughout history have entered into and repudiated treaties. There's nothing radical or new under the sun on this. So the executive arm of government could have simply immediately said, right, we'll serve notice on the Vienna Convention of Treaties, that we're repudiating the European Communities Act 1972 and all the following EU treaties, and then take it off the statute book. And then that could have been done within days of the referendum. As for the EU withdrawal bill, what it is nothing really of the sort. It's transposing all those 30 or 50,000 directives from the EU into UK law. And it will then take decades to lock the branches off what is not needed. And it's ridiculous. It'd be much better if you think of the EU withdrawal bill like a huge tree where branches are being lopped off here and there gently over many years. It's much better to have taken the chainsaw to the base of the tree, take the whole tree down, and then just bring back the handful of good laws that came in to adopt. And then we would have been out. There's no reason we could certainly be out now. We could be out within days. And for a case in point on this, the Baltic states, when the Soviet Union started to crumble, left within a week. And that was it, unilateral withdrawal. That's the way to go.
Do you think
no money paid to the EU, none of this nonsense.
Do you think that mistakes were made, or do you think that a plan is being enacted?
Well, that's an interesting question. I believe that the vast majority of the electorate don't trust Theresa May and her Remain-led government 1 inch. The fact that nothing's been achieved in 2 years, and there's been a lot of talk about things being extended for years and years, as you said earlier this evening, shows a complete lack of trust and commitment. I don't believe Theresa May wants to leave the EU for 1 minute. She wants to orchestrate failure. And the trouble with that policy, I think she'll probably present Parliament with a really bad deal and recommend it. And if she does that, she's going to destroy the Tory party for a generation, because people won't trust the Conservatives. And the point of democracy 17.4, which we were talking about earlier, and now this point, is the issue of one word: trust. And if the people can't trust Parliament, then you destroy the democratic function of the whole country. And if you do that, you're one step away from anarchy. And we don't want that either.
Okay, I'm going to be bringing in some calls and asking you a little bit more about Democracy 17.4 specifically in a minute. But just take a few comments first. Andreas Sabino says, is a bankster-led plan. Treason, May, etc., are merely puppets. Susie Courtnell-Edwards, revoke. Please jump in, William, if you'd like to, with any of these points. Susie Courtnell-Edwards says, revoke everything European and get out. Anthony Partington, sorry I spelled your name wrong, Kerry. Stephen Lang, she's doing a good job at failure. Stephen Lang, Pendragon Governor, he's going to be here tomorrow, bless him. Hey, Stephen, looking forward to that, sir. Susie Courtnell-Edwards, May is a Remainer and wasting our taxpayers' monies. Is there not an argument, though, to say, you say not pay a penny, but we do tend to honour our debts, us Brits. Should we not have paid the last couple of years as a kind of a token, said we're walking, but we'll give you that money that we've agreed to in your budget? Or, on the other hand, is that immoral because we're effectively sponsoring fascism?
Well, I think where we've contracted to pay EU bureaucrats pensions, we should honour those contracts. If you start to dishonour contracts, you undermine contract law, and so we should do that. But certainly not pay any money into an EU budget. If you remember, they've had an unaudited budget, but it's not been passed by auditors for some 20 years. So we don't even know if the budget, the figures are even real. But where it comes to leaving, and why should we be paying £40 billion, or whatever figure it's going to end up, for a loss-making trade deal? We lose about 85 billion a year on trade with the EU. Much better if we just say we're leaving, we're not paying you a penny. If you want access to the British market for your BMWs and Mercedes and Volvos and whatever it is, you come in and have a cup of tea and we will tell you what you will pay us for access to the British market.
Quite right. Thomas White says, Ollie, we don't owe them a penny. Thomas, I'm playing devil's advocate, sir. John Middleton, the planet's got about 7 billion illegal immigrants. The planet's got about 7 billion illegal immigrants. As if we were on this planet, we wouldn't be messing it up. Maybe the boomed countries are going to be the future product for reality, John Middleton. Paul Rees-Ham, we need an ID card. End of. So we know who's here. You couldn't buy a pint of milk without one. Stav Woodcutter says the real English flag is the wyvern. And there's Palestinian flags all over Blackburn, says the British hive mind. And Stav Woodcutter also says Denison's been put in control all over. It is an act of treason and against the constitutional law. You know, I have to ask, William, was it not treason when Heath took us in to the EEC, given that we know the Foreign and Commonwealth Office were advising the Cabinet that we were going to lose a tremendous amount of sovereignty, particularly in the new century, i.e. now? The FCO 301048 I'm referring to.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it certainly can be challenged that it was illegal act. And one has to be a bit careful here with language because there is a Privy Council oath which Privy Councillors take, which is loyalty and fealty to the Crown and not a foreign power. So they broke their Privy Council oath when they took that oath. and we may well conclude that Queen Elizabeth was misadvised to grant royal assent. I don't want to go into it further than that.
Very well.
But
fair enough.
If we look at challenging the decision in 1975 referendum, it is rather futile by highway and byway, because if we went down that route, we'd be looking at unwinding all the contracts since 1975, which would be an impossible situation. We've just got to deal with the situation we're faced now. But we can certainly use that as leverage to ensure that we get out cleanly.
Okay.
We have to be pragmatic about this.
Yes, quite. I'm going to pull in some folks now, some calls. If anybody wants to call in and ask Sir William a question, hopefully about Democracy 17.4, which I should be asking questions about, I'm going to extend this show a little bit. Would you mind, William, because of the top of the hour, some of the problems I had, if we go over the overtime a wee bit, another, say, 15?
No, that's fine.
Wonderful.
I'm enjoying myself.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. That's great. That's wonderful. Okay, so we'll do that. And if you'd like to call in, please do. guv.li/rant on Discord. And so William is on Skype. So we may have a bit of problem. Skype and Discord don't like each other too much, but we'll do the best we can. So I would like to ask you first, William, please, with this new, would you describe Democracy 17.4 as a movement? Because it seems to me that I understand you have a plan for a political party as well, but so far as the independents are concerned, well, that isn't, is it?
Where we want to take Democracy 17.4, the direction is that each of the 650 constituents put up an individual of good local standing who's been in the community 10, 20, 30, 40 years or so, who is happy with our principles on a full hard Brexit and will sign up to our constitution for the membership association. And that then puts them into a slightly different camp from, say, an individual who stands as an independent. We've had a few independent MPs over the last 40 or 50 years, maybe a handful, but they're not coordinated. They are fully independent. So what we'd like to do is have them unified under one flag, so to speak, so that if we send a significant number of independent MPs to Parliament, we can, or they can, speak with one voice. And that voice is on Brexit and the principles on that. And the second part of that is on a joint manifesto is the most pressing 4 or 5 local issues. And so a simple 2-page manifesto to deal with that.
Would it actually be more accurate to say that they are independent in all policy except for Brexit, and that they must endorse Brexit because that's what the 17.4 voted for? Is that correct?
Yes, they must. Yeah, they must endorse Brexit. They must endorse Brexit,
irrespective of their electorate. Of their constituents,
if their electorate is mainly Remain, for example, like areas of London, and then they won't get the votes, and a Remain MP will be sent to Parliament.
Yes.
I mean, all I was saying earlier was that if the referendum in 2016 had been held, on a general election basis, we'd have been sending over 400 MPs, new MPs, to Parliament on the Brexit ticket.
Can you imagine 400 independent MPs in the House of Commons? That would be awesome, wouldn't it? That would just be fantastic. It's like a dream. It would be like a dream come true, but you're not going to get the backing of the media, are you?
Well, we'll have to see. Certainly, there are many elements of the media who are hostile. You singled out the Independent. I would single out the Financial Times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Was given the Légion d'honneur.
Oh God, were they? The FT was given the Légion d'honneur. Oh my God, that's the highest French honor, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It was brought in by Napoleon in the early 1800s.
Well, that's apt. Oh my goodness gracious!
French honor, I think. Yeah.
That is incredible. That's incredible. I didn't know that they handed out gongs to institutions as well as, and in this case, an incredibly Europhilic, horrid rag as the FT has become. The only reason, let me just get this right, just because you just made a charge of me, sir. But yes, I read all these bloody independent stories. I normally would have my news tab sorted out, and it would be balanced, and it would have been, stories from different places. I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, so the media. I have to say, I am now pushing and talking to, and I'm going to be talking to Stephen Lang tomorrow, for example, about this idea of how we might create, and hopefully the timing could be good now, particularly with Soros sticking his nose in, to call for people to stop paying their license fee, to boycott, to cut their cable, to stop buying the shag rags, and to start, talking to each other instead, finding out what's really going on. We're the media now. We're the media. This internet thing is the biggest invention since Caxton's printing press. The best opportunity we have, or are we all just fake? I don't know. But my point is, should we not be taking this charge to the mainstream media that they are fake, their news is fake, they're exposed. Donald Trump, God bless him, has exposed them. In fact, he actually pointed
to a few Donald Trumps here. They would have he would have sorted out the EU lot in 5 minutes.
It is a problem, though, isn't it? The media.
If you look at the online press, which I do before going out to buy a newspaper, and I look at the comments section, and the comment section can be pretty blunt and more interesting often than the actual article. And but the internet has something in good favour in that people are getting the electorate is much better informed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that hasn't sunk into the George Osborne at Evening Standard, which that vanity fair publication.
George 8 Jobs Osborne.
With its propaganda news sheet, that no wonder they can't sell it. It has to be given out free.
I think that predated him, in fairness, but it is disgusting, isn't it? I mean, he basically bought himself a pulpit, or somebody did give him a pulpit. It seems to me. We've got Simon Dawson has popped in. Simon, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Ollie?
Yes. Thank you for calling. What is do you have a question for Sir William Jaffray?
Yes, Sir William. I can hear some background noise.
Now hold on a sec, because you're on Discord and William is on Skype. It may be. Could you hear Simon then?
No, you'll have to relay the question.
Right, I will. That's fine. I'm going to try opening up a couple of switches here as well. It might happen now, but there may be a bit of echo. What is your question, Simon?
I want to ask Sir William, why didn't he give his why haven't the government given us at the age of 21 disclosure?
Why haven't the government given us at the age of 21 disclosure?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
What do you mean, Simon?
Oh, we've got 3 forms of law running at present.
We've got 3 forms of law
We've
running.
got the corporate commercial law, which is the first SQV Act Trust, 1666. And then we've got the second one, which is maritime law, laws of the seas, which is second SQV Act, which is a trust, 1707.
Yes. Simon, please, come on. Spit it out, sir.
And then we've got the third of traumatic Roman cult law, which is a third SQV Act Trust of baptism.
Right.
And that is the Wills Act. And can you...
You're breaking up really badly, Simon. I do apologise.
I'm not sure what the complaint is.
Well, I've got a professional here, so he's going to sit down and ask you some questions. So can we please cut these back and just listen to these questions?
Yes, come on, get on with it then, because I've got to take other calls too. There's a few people want to ask, and we've only got about 10 minutes left.
Right, okay, I'm gonna pass over, and we want to ask the sir some questions.
Well,
Thank you
yes,
very much. This is Steve McCray now.
Steve, can you please just ask one question, because I've got other people want to ask questions as well. So what's your best question, sir? Okay.
Yes.
Hello? Oh, blimey. This is a terrible...
Yeah, I'll ask just one question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. As quickly as you can.
Okay.
Live on record. Yeah.
Why what? It's a terrible line. Okay, I'm gonna have to... I'm sorry, Simon. No disrespect, mate. I'd really like to get these questions.
Has been sent to the Vatican.
It's sent to the Vatican?
That's indeed.
Hold on a sec. You're breaking up. Can you ask the question again, please?
Yeah, it's just to do with one question. The live on record when you're born.
Yes.
Why is it sent to the Vatican?
Okay. Why is a record of your birth sent to the Vatican when you're born? Is that what you're asking?
No, it's a live born one. Yes.
The live born.
So,
I'm sorry. I'm
don't
sorry.
think this is particularly relevant. To our
Okay.
discussion.
All the best to you, Simon. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. But the line is terrible. Predator Jeff, you're here. Would you like to ask a question?
Oh, hi, Ollie.
Hey, Jeff.
Do you know that for the last hour, all I've heard is you yourself.
Oh,
So,
mate. Well, you should have had
because
you should have had the tab open watching the show. I had to now. Anyway, carry on. Have you got a question, Jeff?
I don't even know who you're chatting to, Ollie.
Oh, for crying out loud. Okay, all right. Thanks a lot. we've also got Caroline Stevens here. Well, Caroline, you're working with Sir William, aren't you? And she's muted. She's muted. Okay, you know what? That's gone really well, hasn't it? The calls on Discord have gone really well. Okay, I'll take some
Modern
comments.
technology.
Oh, yeah. The British Hive Mind. Step 1. Now, this is our Dave Wolf. He's probably on after this show. In fact, he'll be on any time. So he says, this is what we need to do, in his opinion. Oh, Caroline, for crying out loud, mute your mic when you're not talking, darling. The British Hive Mind says, step 1, good, yes. Make the Queen dissolve Parliament. Step 2, reinstate the Constitution. Step 3, enforce common law. Step 4, take back the Bank of England. Step 5, clear the national debt. Step 6, create a new backed currency. Step 7, rebuild British industry and the armed forces. Step 8, put the corporations back in their place. Step 9, sort out the NHS. Step 10, sort the education system. That's Dave Wolf there, yeah? Anything that you would take issue with there?
No, I think it's a pretty full agenda. It would require our sending MPs in to work all of the 52 weeks in the year, but it can be done. Our country is in the most frightful state, and we've really got to put the shoulder to the wheel to get it sorted out on all levels and all aspects.
What are your thoughts on common law, William? What are your thoughts on common law and our constitution? Well,
on common law, in my experience, judges have a tendency, Tony Blair politicised the British judiciary, and there's a problem with them. And that the British judiciary needs to be reformed and made independent, which means abolishing the post of Lord Chancellor and the Supreme Court and the Minister for Justice, and reverting back to a House of Lords as the senior court. But the trouble with judges is that where there's a case that is politically sensitive, that judges will cherry pick precedent cases, which is common law. Common law is the succession or layers and layers and layers of old cases that are built up over the centuries, and where precedents improve by degrees on the law. And that's a system that started by the time of Magna Carta. But judges have been politicized, so that they will take political cases or ones with a political flavor, and they will cherry pick what precedent they want to apply in order to get to their decision. And so that type of thing is totally unacceptable. Lord Denning was the most outstanding judge of the last century because he made some signal decisions for the little man against the government.
Yes.
And he built his reputation on that.
Yes, he did.
And we need to get back to that integrity. So we have a justice system and judiciary that simply does not work.
Lord Denning.
In its present form.
I've got a question, actually.
Go on, Jeff.
Is it Sir, what's his name? Sir William?
Sir William Jaffray.
Sir William Jaffray.
Hello. Good evening.
Sir William, wouldn't it be easier just to scrap all the laws, all the common law, all the legislation, and have 3 rules? Do no harm, injury, or loss. It would cover everything.
You don't want to do that. I mean, the law is it can be academic, can be arcane, can be extremely complex, and what you need to do, you keep the precedent cases, but judges should have, like Lord Denning, they can exercise their discretion to find what's called equity in law, a fair solution. So a judge can then push the boundary to find an equitable solution, and I think that that's the way to go.
Okay.
I would have thought it had just been easier to keep things simple. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got 200,000 laws or whatever it is, and then they say, well, there's no excuse for ignorance of the law. Hello, you've got 200,000 laws. We're supposed to memorise them all. We're not even taught them all at school. So, you know.
That's right. We're not taught civics anymore,
We've got more
are we?
important things that, more pressing things in the law, which is the reduction in legal aid on criminal cases that's been going on for 20 years, and the reduction in access to trial by jury.
Yes.
And in civil cases, for example, you cannot have a trial by jury unless both plaintiff and defendant agree. And that needs to be changed as well, so that in civil cases, and particularly in ones involving fraud, you know, if we had a Madoff here, one needs a jury, and a jury that is financially well educated. So the right of trial by jury is absolutely crucial, needs to be expanded,
Yes.
not diminished, as
Done right.
has happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with the trial by jury. We should have ideally 13 good men and true, because if you got 12 and it goes 6 of one way and 6 the other way, you're that with a sort of hung jury, aren't you? So I think if you've got 13, then at least that way, if you get 7 of one and 6 of the other, we've got a result, haven't you, either way.
Okay. We've got Carl Stephen here as well. Carl, would you like to ask a question, sir?
Hi, Ollie. It is echoing here, so I'll try and take the time.
Okay.
If you are trying to get 400 MPs together,
400 MPs, yeah, independent MPs.
or and opening or starting a new party as well, could you actually put these independent people under the umbrella of a party or the government?
That is exactly what we'd aim to do, so that we could then act collectively.
Supporting new local MPs coming to the area to fight the area. They obviously will need academic people to help them and point them in the right direction for the support. And also we'll be looking for dissidents, Conservatives, Labour, and hopefully not the Liberals.
Well, the membership association is cross-party, so we're not going to hold it against anyone who wants to cross the floor, so to speak. And our criteria is that it's got to be somebody homegrown, good standing, respected within the community. These people exist, and you know, and that we feel is the way to go.
So, how many MPs do you have now?
Well, we have
under your umbrella.
So, William?
So these are our aims.
Mm-hmm. How many? I'm sorry. I think Carl was asking how many prospective MPs, how many candidates do you have?
Yes.
All right. What we've had is agents, if you like, who would then find a prospective candidate who have contacted us and say they want to be an agent from 6 constituencies already. When we're not even so that's quite a sort of encouraging start for us anyway. And and the agent's job is to find the best person to represent that constituency, and then to do networking, to bring a team in, to start leafletting and so on and so forth, to build up a local group or more than one group in a constituency, and get that sort of old-fashioned assembly type thing, maybe in a pub or something or whatever, as a sort of cheerful venue, and get that going.
With the size of the political party, is just going to be connected with the independent MPs.
With regard to
they'll be independent in the context of their local issues. They will know their local issues better than we will, and they'll vary from one part of the country to the other. So Grimsby, it'll be fishing. In Wiltshire, it'll be maybe housing, and so on and so forth. And so they have full independence on that, and we only ask that they sign up to the full hard Brexit.
Ollie,
I guess they will in Grimsby. That's Lopi. Lopi, what would you like to ask, my dear?
I don't know who I understand this is Sir somebody. I don't know who. But
Sir William
hello,
Jaffray.
sir.
Sir William Jaffray, who is putting together, basically, sorting out a new movement for independent MPs to besiege Westminster and free us of our tyranny.
I've got a problem. Now, the thing that I understand everything that's going on back home with Tommy Robinson, and I've been flooded. Absolutely, I've got my waders on with all the information and people, wanting to hang people and all that. Now, and people wanting to go to Downing and protest and all that, and they're saying that the media's blanketing and not showing any coverage, blah blah blah. My suggestion: you protest and demonstrate at Downing. You get a blind eye, you shuffled off just like your rubbish. Now, stop going to Downing because you're not going to get the effect you want. Because how many times you have to bash your head against the wall till it's bloody, and then you realise you're only hurting yourself.
You're absolutely right when you think of the 1.5 million who marched on Parliament in protest against Blair's military adventure in Iraq.
Including me.
No difference at all.
Including me, William.
So you're absolutely right, I agree.
Go to the Buckingham Palace. You've got tourists there. They're going to spread the word. You're going to have more. There's policemen there. You've got people all over. The Queen's going to go to the town. People are pissed. They're not going to be happy. They want to know what's going on. And then she's going to hear everybody screaming Tommy Robinson like they've been doing it in the videos. That would be the smarter route instead of going and bashing your head against the wall.
Well, we're not advocating marches.
Don't go to the store and pick up the manure. Wait for a horse that is not there. Go to the horse and pick up the manure.
Okay. Thank you.
It is actually. Thank you, Lopi. It is actually an interesting point, isn't it? Not to bother protesting to Westminster, but actually to go straight to the Queen and Windsor. Say, Carl Stephen, good evening, sir. Can you hear us?
1 second, I'll need to put my headphones back on.
Alrighty, okay, all right. We've got Carl Stephen here as well, and just take one or two questions. We do actually have. Apparently, English Patriot says one of those independent candidates is here. So you've got a candidate, English Patriot. Now, okay, so let me pull up the website so that people can see it. Yes, Jeff.
I was just going to say, what was it Sir William said he's not advocating? I didn't quite hear what he said. He said, I'm not advocating something or other, but I didn't hear what.
Did you use the word advocating? So, William, with regards to marches, no?
No, we don't support marches. It's a waste of time.
Right. You don't advocate protest, then. Fair enough.
Don't advocate what?
Protest.
Well, it doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't achieve anything. We want to send people to Parliament. I was just saying earlier that 1.5 million marched against Blair's adventure in Iraq. It made no difference.
Yeah, absolutely. What I've been saying all along. It's a waste of time. Protests, petitions, all that sort of stuff.
Well, look at the petitions. They have them in an annex in Westminster Hall, and they don't go anywhere. Mostly the petitions don't get anywhere.
And the ones that do,
that's right. That's right.
They get filibustered.
But on the other hand, do they not?
Blair, was it Blair who set up the petition thing? It's rather like you've got a saucepan on the stove and you put the lid on with a valve to let the steam come out. We all sign the petitions thinking something will happen, and nothing does.
No.
But I think for Tommy's petition, they got something like over 400,000
over 500,000 actually. That Tommy petition, one of them's had over 500,000 signatures, but it is around the world. It's not just in the UK. But then again, that's interesting. What is your stance on what happened to Tommy Robinson and the gagging order? Was that judge being political, Sir William?
Well, I don't think he was actually. From what I've read, I've just read what's been in the press, but I've gleaned from several articles that the judge has warned him before and said that please don't do this. We've got a trial going on, and we don't want to have it prejudiced. And there is the rule of sub judice, is that you can't comment on a trial in progress because if you do influence the decision when it goes to the jury, the decision can be unsound. You know, which side is in favour of or against.
Can I say one thing?
Carl, please. Carl, wait. Thank you. Sorry, William.
You could end up having a mistrial, and the whole thing has to be done again. So I think in a way it was unwise.
Can I just say something?
I think he was. Yes, Glenn Rocky Teal, please.
Okay, so a few observations in regards to the Tommy case.
Yes.
His order was in regards to reporting inside the courts, not outside the courts. Also, it was at sentencing, so it wasn't during trial. It was on sentencing, so the trial had finished. Also, the judge, along with a clerk and I think it's two officers, were standing in a window looking at Tommy Robinson. So he was, like Ollie pointed out earlier, is actually a witness. So he can't be a judge.
I did put something on my timeline. I didn't mention it on the show tonight, but yes, Glenn.
But that's 100% correct. That's factual.
Yeah, it is.
Well, the only comment I've got on that is that if he was arrested before sentencing, he shouldn't have been there. You know, the jury should not be coming into court and seeing all this going on.
But how many journalists?
Hold on, Glenn, please. Wait.
Has to be sacrosanct.
Yes. Okay, Glenn, your response to that?
Well, he's a journalist, and he was reporting on a case at sentencing. There has been many times that the BBC has turned up to cases like this.
Okay. All right, Glenn, we've not got much time. So we've done the last two shows have been specifically on this subject, so I don't want to go into it too much.
No, that's fine.
But it is a curious one, isn't it? It does sound as though there is a case for a good barrister, as somebody pointed out to me earlier. A very good point that was made by my guest who's coming on tomorrow, actually, Stephen Lang, that there's a very good case to be made to throw out this conviction out of interest, because the judge apparently has admitted that the evidence of there having been some sort of a breach of the peace because of the video that Tommy was streaming, he only watched a fraction of it. And how could he be sure from that material that he saw that there actually really was a breach of the peace? But then again, it's all pretty... It's a bit hazy. It doesn't help that there was a gagging order put on this so quickly, and that Tommy Robinson also, he was denied a lawyer. No, sorry, excuse me. He instead of having his own lawyer, he was appointed a lawyer who doesn't specialise in contempt of court. It does seem to stink a bit.
Think
William?
a bit. Are you kidding me?
Well, Jeff, please. It does seem to stink a bit, does it not, William?
Well, yes, certainly. If he was denied legal representation of his own choice or proper representation, contempt of court's a serious charge.
I'm not sure that he was denied. Maybe that's too strong a word, but the bottom line is that he. Go on.
Jeffrey Archer was sent to prison for contempt of court for perjury.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
if you remember, in the 1980s,
yep. He went
Jonathan
to Ford
Aiken,
Open prison.
Similarly, and contempt of court is a serious thing. But the only thing I do question is, whether somebody should be sent to jail rather than just tagged and told your tag means you've got to stay at home. Throwing somebody in with groups of hardened criminals is not very intelligent.
This is one of the things that's worrying a lot of people. A lot of people are very concerned that he's essentially been handed a death sentence, but because of anyway. Look, we've covered this the last couple of shows. We'll be talking about it again, but we do want to we've also got Carl Stephen here. Carl, what would you like to ask, sir?
Staying on the same one. I'd like to make the point of for afraid disturbing the peace, whatever else, and his conviction was completely different, and the judge was watching through the window. So he's got a good case of false arrest, hasn't he?
Okay. Have you got a question?
I'm afraid I don't know anything more than I've already the observations I've made from reading in the press. So
I'm not, to be honest with you,
I'm afraid I can't make any useful comment other than what I've just said.
Given the gagging order, given the disparity of information I've seen in the UK and in the States, for example, I'm not surprised there's so much confusion over this case and that people don't really know largely what's going on with it, frankly. Anyway, okay. And we've got Caroline Stevens here. Caroline, can you hear us? No, she's not paying attention. Blimey. Okay, look, I have put a link to Democracy 17 stroke 4 hyphen rather. Democracy 17-4.org in the comments on YouTube and on Facebook, and so please check that out. And Steemit, yeah, Steemit. I want everybody to be using Steemit, but I do apologize, I haven't put it in the comments there because I'm still working out how to use Steemit myself. So when are we going to see Democracy 17.4 making a visible impact, William?
Well, we are looking at speaking events, and we are looking to build up membership in the constituencies in the hope that in the autumn there'll be one or two by-elections which we will be ready and prepared to contest. We're not at that stage yet. As I said, we're still in the sort of work in progress stage, but we would very much like to be in a position to contest a couple of by-elections in the autumn, if that's at all possible, and take it on from there and towards a general election. And whether there's a general election, some of my colleagues think it might even be this year or in March next year when Brexit's meant to be closed. The the next general election, in our view, should be a Brexit election. That should be a Brexit election. That should be the one main burning issue, in our view, and we should fight it on that basis. And if we do that, then the people who are returned to Parliament will have a clear mandate, and the Remainers in its constituency say that loses in a plebiscite will accept that no one challenges a general election result unless there's been postal fraud and things like that. They're only challenging it because it's a referendum, not a general election. So we want a Brexit general election to nail this once and for all.
So, William, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show, sir. Very much appreciate it. I hope that you've enjoyed it.
Yes, I have. It's been fun, Ollie. Thank you very much, and I hope I've answered some of your guests' inquiries.
I think you have, and some of mine as well. And I do hope you'll come back, because there's a lot more to chew over. It's obviously a very, very short amount of time that we've been talking about this, and there is so much, unfortunately, to talk about.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
God bless you. I want to say a big, big thank you to my special guest tonight, Sir William Jaffray from Democracy 17.4. Oh, blimey. Hold on. What's going on there? And also to everybody on Discord, thank you very much indeed. I'm not sure about you, Simon Dawson. Blimey, I tell you what, getting question out of you is like getting blood out of a stone, mate. But thank you so much, Simon. Thank you. You're a very good caller. And President Jeff, thank you, Jeff. And Loki, thank you. And Carl Stevens, God bless you. I don't know if it's Hive Mind now, but you can probably check out Hive Mind, guv.li/Hive. Caroline's been popped into the word, but she's in the comments, bless her. And she said, hey, what about Melanie Shaw? She said in the comments, Melanie Shaw, We're talking a lot about Tommy, and quite rightly, Melanie Shaw too, huh? I think that she had a trial without jury, if I remember correctly. William was talking about that. Tomorrow, Stephen Lang. Stephen Lang. Cool. Looking forward to that. This has been the Daily Chaos. I remain Olly Connelly. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Loads of comments, everybody. Thank you. Here's to us and bug up plutocracy. And look, you know what? You gotta stop paying for propaganda, people. You gotta stop paying for propaganda. Yeah. I'm gonna be pushing this a lot now. If you haven't seen that thing I wrote earlier, please read it. It's somewhere on the Daily Brexit page, something like that. Daily Chaos, all running. There is no Brexit. Not with this bloody government, anyway. That's it. Ciao. God bless you. Cheerio. Have a lovely evening.